By the end of this tutorial, you'll have built a complete full stack mobile application using React Native and Node.js. It's a recipe finder app with 5 different screens: sign up screen, home screen, search screen, favorite screen, and profile screen. Let me give a quick tour of the app and then we'll talk about the tech stack. First, you need to authenticate to use the app. There are two sign-in options: continue with Google or continue with Apple. Since I already have an account, I'll sign in with Google and we redirected to the home screen. Here we have a beautiful hero image at the top, followed by a trending recipes section, and we can also browse the full list of recipes. Tapping on any recipes takes us to the details screen, which displays everything about that recipe: the name, description, rating, cooking time, calories, ingredients, nutrition card, and step-by-step instructions. Next is the search screen where we can search for recipes and add any of them to our favorites. Then on the favorite screen, we can view all our saved recipes and remove any of them by tapping the delete button. Finally, we have the profile screen where we can manage our account, remove a connected account, connect a different one, or sign out. Now let's talk about the technologies we'll be using. We'll build our APIs with Node.js and Express, use Neon as our database along with Drizzle ORM, and handle authentication with Clerk. For the mobile application, we'll use React Native with Expo and style it using Nativewind. And the entire project is written in TypeScript. This course is completely beginner friendly. If you know the basics of web development and some basics React experience, you will be able to follow along without any problems. It is a great way to learn both mobile and backend development in a single project. One last thing, if you are finding this video helpful, please consider subscribing. Over 90% of you watching are not subscribed yet, and your support really motivates me to keep creating quality content like this. Alright, let's dive in. To build our mobile app from scratch, we are going to use Expo. As you can see here, Expo is a full stack React Native framework with cloud services to help you move faster at every stage of the app lifecycle. Expo is a React Native framework which is recommended by React Native itself. If you go to the React Native documentation, here you can read. You can also use React Native without a framework. However, we found that most developers benefit from using a React Native framework like Expo. React Native say Expo provides features like file-based routing, high-quality universal libraries, and the ability to write plugins that modify native code without having to manage native files. So as you can see, React Native itself recommends Expo to build our React Native mobile application. So we are going to use Expo to build our mobile application. And if you scroll below, you can see multiple apps which are using Expo in production build, like Coinbase, Pizza Hut, YC, and so on. So let's go to VS Code, and here I have already created this folder which is Recipe Hub. So as usual, we are going to start from scratch, create one folder Recipe Hub or name it whatever you want and open it in VS Code. As you know, we are going to build front end and back end of this application. So we need two folders. First one is back end, second one is front end. First, what I am going to do, I will initialize the Expo project in the front end and we will build the sign-in screen. After this, we will write some APIs for our front end. So if you check the design, and this is the design of our sign-in screen. This is how it's going to look like. First, we have this nice beautiful looking hero image. Then we have this card, discover amazing recipes. Then here we have the description, and we are going to provide two options to user: continue with Google or continue with Apple. Don't worry, I am going to explain each line of code, so if you are a beginner or experienced developers, you are going to learn something from this tutorial. So what I will do, I will go to docs, and I will copy this command, open the terminal. Remember here we have this recipe hub, and if you do ls, so we have the backend and frontend. So I will go to the frontend directory, frontend, and run this command here. So this will create a latest Expo project. I'll use latest SDK, and it will take some amount of time to create and initialize our project. And to style our app, we are going to use Nativewind, which is similar to Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is used in web, Nativewind is used for mobile applications or React Native applications. It says style your React Native apps using Tailwind CSS. The utility first workflow you love from Tailwind CSS in your React Native applications. So this is an amazing library which we can use in our app. If you already know Tailwind CSS, Nativewind is much similar to Tailwind CSS, and it's supported in both iOS and Android. Get started. We are going to use the latest version v5. Scroll below and go to installation. Let's check if project is initialized. Yes. So now what I'm going to do, if you check the package.json for our front end, here in the script to run in the iOS simulator, we have this command. Now how to run this application? There are different ways you can run this application. The first way, you can install Expo Go app in your smartphone. So if you search Expo Go and go here, so you can download this app in Android and iOS. What you can do, you can just run this command. So this one, npm run iOS, and what it will do, it will create the build and it will give one scanner, QR scanner, and using this Expo Go app, just scan that QR and it will open your application in the Expo Go app itself. That was the first way. Or what you can do, you can download the Android emulator and iOS simulator, and you can run Expo Go app in the simulator, and you can open your application in the Expo Go app. To download this simulator and emulator, just go to this documentation or to this website expo.dev and install it from here. And the third way, what you can do, you can create your own build. As we are building for production, what we are going to do, we are going to go with the last way. It's not the last but the third way, which is we are going to create our own build, iOS and Android, and we will create that build using script. To create our own build, first you need simulator. So make sure to install simulator. How you can install simulator? To install simulator, what you can do, go to this website. I'll provide this link in the description below, and follow this documentation to install Xcode and simulators. Trust me, you can follow this documentation and you can easily install Xcode and simulators. And for Android emulator, you can go to this documentation and you can install the Android emulator. I have already installed the Xcode and simulator. So what I am going to do, I will run this command npx expo run iOS. After you have installed Xcode and simulator, run this command. So it will take some time to create the iOS build, and it will open your app in the simulator. And to create the Android build, just replace this iOS with Android and it will create the Android build. And you can see here we have this iOS build created. Now it will take some time, it depends on your internet connection, and it will open your app in the simulator. If you are having any issue installing simulator or running your app on the simulator or on the Expo Go app, you can ask me in the comment section and I am happy to help you. Alright, as you can see, our app is installed on the iPhone 17 iOS 26.5 simulator. This is the boilerplate code which we are going to remove now. To remove this boilerplate code, we have this script. So I'll say first we have to go in the front end, npm run reset project. It will ask, do you want to move these existing files? So I'll say no, press enter. and it will rerun again, and you can see now it says edit this file to edit this screen. So I will close the terminal and let's go to index.tsx, and you can see if I write anything here, I will write hello world, so it instantly appears here. The next library we are going to install is the Nativewind, so that we will get rid of these styles. First I'll remove these styles. Let's remove it from here as well. I'll remove this style sheet. Yeah, if you go to the documentation, we have to install Nativewind. Simply copy this command, open terminal and run this command here. What this command will do, it will install Nativewind and its peer dependency. Then we need to set up Tailwind CSS. So copy this command and install Tailwind CSS as well. Then we have to create this post CSS configuration file. So I'll go here in the front end, create this file, copy this code and put it here. Let's see the next step. Next we have to create this global.css file. I'll again create a new file inside frontend directory and copy this code and put it in global.css. Let's check it out the next step. Next we need to create this metro.config.js file. I'll create new file again, copy this content or code and put it here. Then we need to import global.css in our root directory, and also we need to install lighting CSS. So let's import global CSS here. So what I will do, let's close all of this and let's go to source and let's go to layout. Let's import global CSS file here, global.css. Make sure to import like this. Let's check the next step. Next, copy this override. So I will copy this overrides and open package.json and put it here. So I will put it before the script. Yeah. Now let's check the next step. So this is the final step. We are using TypeScript. So we need to create this Nativewind file for TypeScript configuration and simply copy this code and put it here. Now to work this out, what I'm going to do, I will kill this terminal and first I'll say npm I, because we have modified package.json, so we need to do that. Then open this explorer and here delete this iOS directory and run npm run iOS. So if you check it out in package.json, if you run this command npm run iOS, it will run Expo run iOS, which will install our app inside this simulator. So again, it will take some time. It depends on your internet connection. So let's wait for some time until it's installed. Now our app is running on this simulator. Also one thing to note, if you scroll below, so here you have this QR code which I am talking about earlier. You can scan this QR code from the Expo Go app and you can also open this app on your mobile device. Now I'll close this and let's test the Tailwind CSS. So I'll give the text color as red 500. So you can see our Tailwind CSS is working fine, or you can call it as Nativewind. Actually it is Nativewind. Then what I will do, I'll remove all of this code and I will create a new component and let's call it home screen. It will just return one view from React Native and one text, and I'll write here hello world. Let's export this home screen. If you don't know what is view, so view is similar to div in web. View is a container which holds other elements. We can create view to create different types of layout. And text is similar to h1 or h2. We can write text or the string inside text. We cannot write text inside view or in any other element. Text must be wrapped inside a text component. Then in the layout, what I will do, I want to hide this header. To hide this header, simply write screen options, header shown to false. As soon as header is hidden, you can see here the problem. The hello world is above the status bar. We don't want the content to shift above the status bar. We want in the safe area view. To fix this, what I'll do, I'll create a components folder inside source, and I'll create one safe area view component, safe area view.tsx. Here we have the safe area view. So what I'm doing here, I've imported the style tag from the Nativewind and the safe area view from this React Native safe area context library. This library is installed when we initialize our Expo project, and I have just wrapped the safe area view inside the style tag so that we can give Nativewind to this safe area view. If you use safe area view directly from this library, and if you provide some Nativewind to the safe area view, then it will not work. That's why I wrapped this inside the style tag. Then I will wrap this view inside a safe area view. Remember to import the safe area view from the components folder, and I'll wrap this view inside safe area view. And check it out, as soon as I save this file, this hello world comes below this status bar. Now all the content written in this safe area view will be in safe area and it will not overlap with the status bar. Now let's check the design. So I'll go to Xcel and here we want to build this screen. For authentication, we are going to use Clerk. So let's search Clerk Expo, go to this link and simply sign up. So I have signed up to the Clerk dashboard. So let's create a new application. Let's call it Recipe Hub. I'll off this email. We'll provide sign in with Google and sign in with Apple. We'll provide these two options to the user and simply create application. Then Clerk documentation will guide us to install the Clerk. You can also install using the prompt, or if you scroll below, go to this docs quick start, and here we can follow this step to install Clerk. Before we proceed, select your SDK here. So I'll select Expo and scroll below. We are going to skip this step as we have already created Expo app. Copy this command and let's go to the terminal, open new terminal, and make sure to go into the Frontend directory and run this command here. It will install Clerk and some other packages. While installing Clerk Expo, we were getting the version mismatch error. To resolve this, I have downgraded the Expo version to 56 from 57. So what you can do, just click the link below in the description and download this package.json file and this package log.json file and replace your package.json with this downloaded file. Or you can also install this particular version using the command line. But I'll recommend just download this file and replace your package.json and package log.json with this file and everything will work. So now our app is running in the iPhone 17 simulator. After we have installed the Clerk Expo, let's check the next step. Next, we have to create this env file and copy this publishable key. So here I will create one env file inside Frontend and I will paste this. Now let's see the next step. So after we have added the publishable key in env file, we have to verify these plugins in app.json. So let's go to app.json, and if you see here, already in the plugins we have Clerk Expo and Expo Secure Store, like this one. After this, we need to add the Clerk provider to our root layout. So I will copy this code and let's go to root layout and replace this code with this one. We are going to use stack instead of slot, and the screen options, and I will hide the header, and make sure to import global CSS. So here what we are doing, we are checking if the publishable key is not present, we are throwing this error, else we are wrapping our stack in the Clerk provider. Now I will close all the file, and let's create the auth. To create the auth, first I will create one new folder. Sorry, not in source, in app. I will create one new folder, auth. I will create one layout file inside auth. Inside this file, we will export one function which is root layout, and I will say const equals to use auth, which is coming from Clerk Expo. Here I will say is signed in and is loaded. We will destructure this to property, and I will check if is loaded is not true, then return null, and then we'll add this condition if is signed in. If the user is not signed in, we will redirect the user, redirect, which is coming from Expo router. We will redirect the user to the home page like this. It is not is signed in, remove this. If the user is signed in, then we will redirect the user to the home page. Else we will return one stack, and let's hide the header here as well. Header shown to false. Here in this auth layout, we are checking if is loaded is false, then return null. Else if user is signed in, then return the home page, means we will redirect the user to the home page. Else if user is not signed in, then we are returning this stack. So inside this auth, I will create one file, one path, which is signin.tsx. This will be a sign in screen, so I'll create one const, and for now let's return one view and one text saying sign in. Let's export this, export default sign in screen. Then inside the app, I will create one new folder, tabs. So we are going to have 4 tabs. If you check the design, here we have 4 tabs: home, search, favorites, and profile. So for now, let's create the home screen. So I will delete this index file, and you can see as soon as I delete the index file, here we have this message, sign in screen. So if I go here and let's give some margin top, let's give 5 rem. So you can see here we have this sign in screen, but we are getting this error that home screen does not exist. To fix this, let's create the index file inside tabs. Let's create the home screen. I'll return one view. Let's use the safe area view here. We will require this. Then inside this, I will take one view. Inside this view, I will say home screen. Let's import this text from React Native. Yeah. Also, we have to export this home screen as well. So I'll export it here. Yeah. Now the error is gone. Now let's create our sign in screen. So I'll remove this class. This is for testing. Then if you check the design, first we have this image. So let's place this hero image first. I will remove this text, and let's take one image from React Native, and for source I'll use this require. Let's go to assets/images/hero.png, and then I'll add the width as full. So you can see now we have this beautiful looking image which is looking good, and this image is coming from the images folder. You can access these assets from the link in the description below. Just click the link below in the description and download this assets folder and drag and drop this assets folder in your code. This asset folders contains all the icons and all the images we are going to use in this project. So make sure to grab this. I'll close this, and after this image I will take one view. Inside this view I will take one more view, and inside this view I will take one text, and it will say discover amazing recipes. Here we have this text. Let's give some class to this view. This is the class I have given to this view. First I have given some margin top -12. Then I have given this view height as full, background color white. I have given the border radius from top right and top left, and some padding and margin bottom to 16. This is a simple Nativewind classes. Then inside this view I will make this view as flex, gap 2 and items in center. Then I will give some class to this text. Let's give text as center. Text color will be code gray. Text size will be 4XL and font weight will be bold. So if you are wondering where this color is coming from, then go to global.css file, and I have declared all of this color here which we are going to use in our app. So make sure to download this global.css file as well, and just copy and paste all of these colors in your global.css file. I'll close this file, and then after this text here we have this another text which is a description for our recipes app, and I have given the text size as base, text color to Kabul and text in center. Now we have created the title and description. Then after this view I will take one more view for our buttons. Inside this button I will take one pressable from React Native, and first let's give some class to this view. I'll give the margin top as 6, gap 4, flex and items in center. Then inside this pressable we are going to use the image for Google. So here I have taken this pressable, and in this pressable first I have given some class names. First class is the cursor pointer. Then I have given the display as flex, item center, justify center. So it will be in center horizontally and vertically, flex row. Then I have given some gap width to full. Then I am using this color as the border color, some padding, and I have given the border radius. And inside the pressable I have taken this image from React Native, and we are using this google.png for this Google logo. And after this image we have this text which says continue with Google. So I think our button is looking good. Now let's copy this pressable again, and just we have to copy paste this pressable and just replace the text and background color. So I will copy this pressable. In this pressable I have just replaced the background color to black and the text color to white. And instead of Google image we are using this Apple logo, apple.png, which is coming from the images assets folder. And if you check the design, it is looking same like this, continue with Google and continue with Apple. Now let's create this terms and privacy policy text. So after this pressable I will take one text, and I'll say by continuing you agree to our terms and privacy policy. Let's style this text. First I'll give the width as 80%, text in center, margin top to 9, I'll give the text color and font weight to medium. Yeah, now here we have this text. But if you click any of the buttons like continue with Google or continue with Apple, it will not work because currently only we have created the UI. And if you check it out, the design, it is looking same like this one. Awesome. Now let's make it work. To do this, I am going to create one hook. I'll close this, and inside source I will create one folder, hooks. Inside hook I will create one hook, use social auth.ts. So this will be a simple hook which will be responsible for signing with Google and Apple. I'll create this hook, use social auth, which will be a arrow function. Let's export this hook first. Export default, use social auth. Yeah. Now inside this hook, first we need to create some state. So I'll say loading strategy. So I'm calling each option as strategy. Set loading strategy equals to use state, and initially the value will be null, but it can be a string as well. Let's define the type for this state variable. The type will be string or null. Then after this variable or use state, I'll use the use SSO from Clerk Expo. So this is provided by the Clerk Expo, and we will use this start SSO flow. Then I'll create one handle social auth, which will be a async handler, and the type it will take as strategy, sorry, not the type, the parameter, and the type will be auth Google or auth Apple. Yeah, like this. If you want to support more authentication types, you will have auth GitHub and so on. Then inside the social auth, first I will check if the loading strategy is not null, then I'll say return. Then we will say set loading strategy to the strategy. Then let's take one try catch block. Inside try, we are going to use this start SSO flow. So I'll say const equals to await start SSO flow, and inside the object we need to pass the strategy. This will return, sorry, here we have the typo, it is saying auth, which is wrong, OAuth. Yeah, the error is gone. So this start SSO flow will return the session ID, created session ID, and set active, which we will require. First I'll say if by chance session ID is not created or set active is not active, then user is not signed in successfully. So let's display the alert to the user, and we'll say sign in incomplete, and let's provide the description as well. Sign in did not complete, please try again. So if the sign in is not successful, we will inform the user that your signed in is not successful, so please try again, and we will return. We will not move forward. But let's say the session ID and set active is true, then simply we need to call the set active method, and we need to pass the session which already we have, which is created session ID. Yeah. Then let's handle the catch block as well. Let's say for some reason sign in is unsuccessful, so we will say error in social auth. Let's print the error, and here as well I'm going to inform the user that error failed to sign in, please try again. We are going to also take the finally block, and here we will say set loading strategy to null. So what it means, so what we are doing, irrespective of the try catch block, finally blocks always executed. So we don't care if the sign in is successful or sign in is not successful. By the way, we care if the sign in is not successful, but we are checking if sign in is not successful or sign in is successful. So we are setting the set loading strategy to null, because if the sign in is successful, then we will have the loading strategy, the previous loading strategy. We will replace this with null, and if sign in is not successful, then also the loading strategy is going to be there in the state. So we are just replacing it with the null. So I hope you have understood this handle social auth. Return this handle social auth and the loading strategy. Now we can use this handle social auth and loading strategy. Let's go to sign in. Here let's destructure the handle social auth. So I'll call this use social auth handle social auth, and on continue with Google button click here on the pressable on press, and I will call this with OAuth Google. And similarly here for the Apple, let's take the on press and handle social auth and pass this Apple. Now let's test it. I will click continue with Google. Yeah, so it gave us the alert. Frontend wants to use accounts.google.com to sign in. So I'll say continue. Yeah, and it opened this accounts.google.com. So I've used this account, so I'm going to use this account again. And I'll say continue. Yeah, and you can see we successfully landed on the home screen. It means we have signed in successfully. How you can verify this? If you go to the layout file, here we are checking if the user is signed in, then only land the user or redirect the user to the home screen. If user was not signed in, then we have written this stack, and returning this stack means in this stack we will render this sign in screen component. So if we were not signed in successfully, we will get the alert and we will there in the sign in screen, not in the home screen. The user to home screen means user is signed in successfully. Also what you can do, if you want to verify the user as well, just write const use user, and you can destructure the user here, and if you print the user you will have the email ID and all the necessary details. So I will remove this, we will use this later. So we have successfully created our sign in screen. In this lecture we are going to set up the tabs. We have 4 options: home, search, favorites and profile. So let's create these tabs. So let's go back to the code, and here inside the front end, inside the source, inside app, we have created the tabs folder previously. Now inside this tabs folder I am going to create one new file which is layout.tsx. And remember, whenever you are creating the layout file, make sure it starts with underscore. Then inside this layout file I'll say export default function auth routes layout. I'll say const, we are going to use the use auth, and we will destructure is signed in and is loaded. And I will check if is loaded is false, then return null. Else we will check if user is not signed in, is not signed in, then what we are going to do? Yes, we are going to redirect the user to the sign in screen. So we will pass the href as this sign in screen route. Else I will return one native tabs. We are going to use the native tabs from Expo router. Inside this native tabs we will use the native tabs dot trigger, and inside this native tabs trigger I will use the label. So I will say native tabs dot trigger dot label, and the label will be home. So if you check it out, nothing comes here because we need to pass the name for the trigger, and I will say index. And you can see now here we have this tab with this label home. Also I am going to give the tint color here, tint color, and I'll use this color AB3500. So this matches with our app color, and for each label I'm going to use the icon as well. So I'll say native tabs dot trigger dot icon. So this is a self closing, so I will remove this and let's self close this here, and let's use the SF for the symbol icon, and I will give the default icon as house, and when user selects this, then we will change the icon with the fill. So you can see currently it is selected, so we have this fill icon. Now we want to replicate this for other three options. So simply I will copy this and I will paste 3 times. Yeah, but all these names should be unique. So if you see, we want search, favorites and profile screen. So let's quickly create 4 screen. First I'll create the search screen, then let's create the component as well. So I'll say search screen, and it will simply return one view and one text saying search screen. Let's export this as well, search screen. Yeah, so we forgot to import this text. Let's import it here, and I'm going to wrap this view inside safe area view as well, as it will be required. Yeah, now let's copy this code and I will create one more screen which is favorites, and let's paste it here and simply replace this search with the favorites and replace this text and the export. Yeah, now let's copy this again, and the next screen we want to create is the profile. So I will create one more file here, profile.tsx. Let's paste it here, replace this favorites with profile, copy this and replace here and here. Yeah, now let's go to our layout, and here first we have the index which is home screen, then we want search. Let's replace the name as well. Then I'm going to change the icon as well. I'll use this magnifying glass icon, magnifying. If it is selected, then I'm going to use this icon. Now let's do for here as well, for favorites and profile. Let's replace this with favorites. The label will be favorites. Yeah, let's replace the icon as well. For favorites I will use this heart icon. Yes, and the last option we have is the profile. Let's use this person image, and it will be person.fill. Let's refresh our app. Yeah, now you can see we have the home screen, we have this little text home screen, search screen, favorite screen and the profile screen. And you can see as soon as I click, the icon changes. Similarly for search and home. Yeah, so it is looking good. So we have successfully set up our tab. Now in the next lecture, we are going to build our home screen. In the previous lesson, I said we are going to build home screen in this lecture. Before building the home screen, we need to build our backend. In backend, we are going to use Express, and in the database side, we are going to use Neon. So if you go to neon.com, so it is a Postgres backend designed for apps and agents. Neon is a serverless Postgres database which is a very famous. You can see it has 22.4k stars on GitHub. So go to neon.com and sign up on this website. So I will log in, and I am going to log in with Google. After you have logged in, you will redirect to this dashboard page. So here you can see I've already created one project for the demo purpose. Now I'm going to create a new project. So click this new project button and name the project. So I'm going to name it as Recipe Hub. The region will be AWS East and the Postgres version is 18. So I will not modify any of these options and simply create. After this, we need to get our connection string. So click this connection string and copy this connection string. So let's go to VS Code, and in the backend directory, first I'm going to create one env and I'll paste it here. I will name it as database URL. Yeah. And also I'm going to create one more environment variable which is port, and our backend will run on 3001 port. You can run your backend on 3002 port or 5000 port. In any port you can run your backend. I'm going to make it as 3001. So yeah, we have the database URL and the port. Now after we have the connection string, and if you go to the tables, so I'll close this, go to tables. So currently if you check it out, there is no tables is created. So let's build our backend. So I'm going to go here and I'll open the terminal, and let's go to backend directory by using cd backend. In this backend directory, first we need to install or initialize the npm. So I'll say npm init. The package name will be backend. Let it be version. I will not enter any description. The entry point will be index.js, and just press enter. For author, I will name it Frontend Lab, license ISC, and just press enter. So we have initialized our package.json. If you want, you can modify your backend name like Recipe Hub Backend or anything you want. Then I'll clear this, and we need to install some libraries. So I'm going to install all of these packages. The first package is Drizzle ORM. So what is this Drizzle ORM? So to communicate with database, we need some kind of ORM. So we are going to use Drizzle to communicate with our Neon database. It is a lightweight library. So install this Drizzle ORM. Then we are installing this Neon database serverless .env, CORS, Express, and NodeMon to run the project whenever we save any file. So we don't need to run our server again and again. So I'm going to install all of these packages here. All the packages is installed. If you want, you can check here. We have installed all of these packages. And also I'm going to install one Drizzle kit package with TypeScript. This will go in the dependency, the dev dependency. So we will require this Drizzle kit to push the tables. Yeah, so if you check it out here, we have this Drizzle kit and tsx. Then for the backend, we are going to use TypeScript as well. So I will say npm install TypeScript. Yeah, we have the TypeScript here. Also what we can do, we can put this TypeScript in the dev dependency as well. So I'll remove the TypeScript from here, or let's say npm uninstall TypeScript. Yeah, and let's install again in the dev dependency TypeScript. Yeah, here we have the TypeScript. Then to initialize the TypeScript with tsconfig file, we need to write npx tsc -- init. So you can see this tsconfig.json file is created. Manage the TypeScript from here. Now after this, we need to install some types. As we have installed all of these dependencies, we need to install each dependency types. This is the all TypeScript packages we are going to install. Just click enter and install all of these all of these packages in the dev dependencies. Yeah, so we have all the types for each library or packages. Now I'm going to close this terminal. Finally, we have installed all of the packages which is required to build the backend. As we are using NodeMon to run the project, we are going to write one script. Let's name it as server, and whenever this script hits, it will call NodeMon. So it will not work like this. We need to create the nodemon file as well. Add comma here, remove this comma, and in the backend create one nodemon file, nodemon.json. So we will have all of this instruction in nodemon.json file. So what is this and what it will do? So what it will do, it will watch this source directory. Whenever something changes in the source, it is going to rerun the app. And I have added this ignore. It will ignore this spec file and it will execute this TypeScript, HTML, CSS, EJS, JSON. If any of this file changes, then the nodemon will run the project again. And we have this execute command which runs the server.ts. So let's create one source. All our code will go in the source. As you can see, I have this /source server.ts. So let's create the server.ts. So why I am creating the server.ts? Because if nodemon executes, it will find the server.ts file. And to verify this, let's put one console and let's say server is running. Yeah. Now let's test this. So I'll go to the backend directory and I will say npm run server. And yeah, you can see the nodemon started this source server.ts file and it prints server is running. And check it out. If I change anything here, let's say I will write anything here, and as soon as I save the file, it automatically restart the server. So this is working as expected. Now let's move forward. So I will remove this console. Now let's create the app from Express. Let's import the Express. So I'll say import Express from Express. Yeah. Here we are getting this error. It is saying ECMAScript's imports and exports cannot be written in a common JS file under this syntax. So we need to adjust this. Let's go to package.json and here after the description write this. The type will be common.js. After adding this type, we still were getting the error. So what I have done, I've deleted the tsconfig file because we don't need that file. As we have installed the TypeScript, we are going to use all the default options. So just delete the tsconfig file. It is not required. If we will require, then we'll see in future. Currently, we don't require that file. So make sure to delete it so that you will not get the import error. Then after we have created the app, then I will write port equals to process.env.port. So you can see in our env file already we have this port. So copy this and paste it here. Also we have installed the .env package. So we need to import .env/config. So process.env.port, but let's say this port is undefined. So by default I will give 3001 port. Then we need to add this app.use express.json. Why we are adding this? If you hover on it, it says returns middleware that only parses JSON and only looks at request where the content type header matches the type option. If we add this line here, we can take the body in JSON from the front end. So make sure to add this and let's write our first API endpoint. So I am going to write one get request. So api.get and let's add /API/health and it will have request and response. So it will take the callback. So I will add this arrow function and I will return response.status, the status code 200, and in the JSON I'll say success is true. So what happens usually when developers write backend, they make sure to add one health endpoint to check the server health. So whenever we want to check our server health, we can simply hit this endpoint, and if it returns true, if we got the response, it means our server is running. Let's verify this. So what I will do here on Chrome, I will say http://localhost http://localhost 3001 slash API slash health. So you can see it says this site can't be reached because we are missing one thing. We have not listened to the port. So I will say app.listen, listen to this port, and it will simply console log server is running at, and let's add the port number here. Let's copy this and paste it here. Yeah. Now let's refresh it. Yeah. So you can see it returns this response success true. It means our server is running successfully. So we have written our first health endpoint to check the server health, and we are listening on the 3001 port. So that's it for this lecture. In this lecture, we have set up our backend, installed all of the packages, and finally we have written our first API endpoint. In the next lecture, we are going to write more endpoints and we are going to set up the backend, sorry, not the backend, the database by creating this schema. So I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to set up our database. So I will open this backend, and inside the source, I will create one new folder called db. Inside the db, I will create one file client.ts. To set up the database, first we need the database URL. So I will say database URL equals to process.env, sorry, my bad, process.env. Let's go to backend env, copy this database URL and put it here. Don't worry about this error, we will fix this later. It will not create issue. Then after the database URL, I will say schema. For now, the schema will be empty or undefined. And first we will check if the database URL does not exist, then I will throw a new error saying database URL is required for API routes. So let's add this message here. Then I will say const SQL equals to neon. Let's import this neon here. Import neon from neon database serverless, and we will pass the database URL here, and simply we will say export const db. We will expose this db instant, and let's import the drizzle as well. Import drizzle from drizzle orm slash neon http. Then inside the drizzle, it will have this client. The client is SQL, and pass this schema. So what we are doing here, we are setting the connection for our database. Now we have this DB. We can use this DB and we can pass any tables to fetch, edit, or we can do anything with our database. Let's close this client.ts file. After we have set up the client, we need to create the schema file. So I will say schema.ts, and first let's create the first table. The first table I'm going to create is the recipes table. So I will say, I will close this file explorer, and I will say export const recipes table equals to pg table, which is postgres table, pg table. Let's import this pg table from drizzle orm slash pg core. Yeah. In this pg table, first we need to add the table name. So I will say recipes, and let's define all the columns. The first column will be id, and the type will be serial. So this serial will come from pg core, not mysql core, because we are using the postgres. Then let's define the id, and this id will be primary key. So this id will be primary key for our table, and it will be unique for every row. So what this serial means? Serial means serial wise. If the id previously is 1, then for the next row the id will be 2, 3, and so on. After this ID, let's think what other columns we need. So I will explain here. So for each recipes, if you remember the design, for each recipes we need name, ingredients, description, rating, and so on. So for each recipes we need all of this information. So we need to create column for each recipes. So I will remove this and let's define the next column, which is name, and the name type will be text, which will come from, sorry, my bad, this will come from PG core. Let's remove this. The name type will be text. Let's define the name here, and it can't be null because each recipes will have its name. The next column will be ingredients, and the type will be JSON, and let's define the type as well because we are using TypeScript. Sorry, let's import this here. Yeah, and I will say dot $sign type. Let's define the type as array of string. This will be an array of string and it can't be null. Yeah, so the ingredients will be array of string. Then we need the description. So the description I will give as short description. The type will be text, and this also can't be null, not null. For each recipe, rating will also be there. The rating type will be decimal. Let's define the rating here, and I will give the precision as 2, so the decimal will be 2, and scale as 1. So we need to import this decimal from PG core as well. Yeah. After this rating, I'm going to copy paste all the other columns. Yeah. So let's import this integer from PG core and this timestamp as well. Yeah. So I will explain to you. So after the rating, we have the preparation time minutes and the type will be integer, then servings, calories, protein, carbs, fats, thumbnail, instructions, and created at, and the type will be timestamp. So all of these columns will exist in recipes table. So I hope you have understood this schema. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to push this table in our Neon database. To do this, we need to write this script. And if you are thinking where all the recipes data will come from, so for now we are going to use the hard coded data, and we are going to put this hard coded data in our database, and we will write one API which will communicate with our database, and it will fetch all the recipes so that we can show it to the front end. So already I have written one script. So in the source, I will paste this script file. So this is the script file, and what I'm going to do, I will remove this from source and I will put this in the backend. Yeah. So if you check it out, this is the simple script I have written here, and this is the database URL. So make sure to replace this database URL with your database. So I'm going to replace this with this database URL. Yeah. And if the database URL does not exist, we throw the new error. Else, again, we are using this neon for the connection, and we have these hard-coded recipes. So we are going to use all of these recipes here, and we have simply written the SQL for this to push all of this data. So we are iterating each recipes, and we are using this SQL insert into recipes, and we are giving all of this data, sorry, not the data, for each column we are giving all of these values, and finally we have this message if we have inserted all of this data in our table. So don't worry about this script much. I have already given this in the description below, so just click the link in the description below and you can access this script. Now to run this script, we need to write one script in package.json. So here inside this script, I will say db push. As you know, we have installed this Drizzle kit push. Let's add the comma here. Yeah. So we are going to run this script, and what it will do, it will go to Drizzle kit and it will push the table. but the problem is we don't have this Drizzle kit. We need to create one Drizzle kit as well. In the backend, I'm going to create one file, drizzle.config.ts. So let's write our Drizzle kit file. First, I will import the define config from Drizzle kit. Then I will say export default and let's define our config. So what it will take, first it will take the schema. So already we have created this schema inside the source. I have this db schema.ts. So as you already know, inside the source we have created this db folder, and inside the db folder we have this schema.ts file. So it will go here, and the out directory will be drizzle./drizzle, and the dialect will be Postgres SQL. So we have many options here, but we are using the Postgres SQL. And we also need to define our DB credentials. So I'll pass the URL as process.env. Let's go to env, copy this and put it here, else the empty string. Yeah, now let's try this out. So if we check it out here, if I refresh, we don't have any table created, so the table is empty. Now I will say, first let's go to the backend directory, and if you check it out, this script, it is say db push. So I will say npm run db push. It is running this script, pulling the schema from the database, and it says changes applied. Yeah, the script ran successfully. Let's check it out if the table is created or not. Yeah, so you can see the recipes table is created. We have id, name, ingredients, short description, rating, and so on. So if you match this, all the columns we have defined in our schema. So here, these all the columns we have defined here. We have created the recipes table successfully using the Drizzle kit, but the data in the recipes table is not there because we need to create one more script. So after this db push, I will say db seed, and I will say node seed dot recipe seed.recipe.js. Let's run this script. I will say npm run db seed. Before running this, we need to also add this scripts slash. So it is in the scripts folder slash seed.recipe.js. Yeah. Now let's run it. npm run db seed. So I think we are getting some error. It says failed neon db relation recipes already exist. Yeah. So what you can do, just drop this table because we have already created the table and it was trying to create again. Now let's run the script again. Yeah, you can see we got this message, seed complete inserted 10. This message is coming from here. It means our script ran successfully. Now let's check it out. So currently you can see we have 0 tables. Now if I refresh, yeah, so we have created our first recipes table with all of this data, and we have inserted all of this data using our script. Awesome. Now we can use all of this data to show in the front end, and we can do all of the edit, update, and read operation. Now just we need to write some endpoints to fetch the data, or if user wants to edit, then we can also update the data and delete as well. But we will not do all of that operations in the recipes table. We will create one more table, the favorites table, and in that table we will implement all of that operations. Let's go back to the code. I will close this terminal, close this seed file, package.json file, this drizzle kit file as well. Now let's create one more table, export const favorites table equals to pg table and I will name it as favorites. Yeah, now let's define the column. So why I am creating this favorites table? Because we are going to give the option to the user to add any recipes in the favorites, and if user deletes the app or it shutdowns the app or removes the app, then also we are going to persist this data using database. That's why I am creating this favorites table. And if you want, you can also take this as a challenge to define all the favorites column. Think about it, what all the columns we will need in our favorites table, how the schema will look like for the favorites table. So I hope you have able to do this. If not, then follow me, I will show you how to do this. So I will create one ID column. The type will be serial, and again this will be a primary key. The next column will be user ID, and I will explain you why I am saving the user ID as well. Let's add this underscore here. This can't be null. Then after the user ID, I will also save the recipe ID. Integer, the type will be integer. Recipe ID, not null. Then we will have the title for each recipe. Text, title, and this will be not null as well. Then after the title, I will also save the image, sorry my bad, image, and the type will be text because we have the URL for each image. Then we will store some more columns as well, like cook time, then servings, text servings. Then we will also store the description, and finally the created at. The type will be timestamp, created at, and we will give the default value as now, the current time. This favorites table schema will have the ID, then it will have the user ID. So what we are going to do, if user favorites the recipes, we'll store the user ID for that user, so that when we will fetch the favorites, we are not going to fetch all the favorites table data, because it is possible that some other users have also favorites that same recipes or the different recipes, and we are not going to show the different user saved recipes to a different user. That's why I'm saving this user ID. We will fetch all the favorites recipes using this user ID, so that it will be make sure that we are fetching only the recipes which user have marked as saved. That's why I'm saving this user ID. Then we will require this recipe ID, and after that this some more attributes, or we can call it column, we will use to show in the UI, like title, image, cook time, servings, descriptions. And if you want, you can also use this created at. In this lecture we are going to write our API endpoints. So let's go to server.ts. I'll close the explorer, and here after this health endpoint, the first endpoint I'm going to write is all recipes. What this endpoint will do, it will fetch all the recipes from the database. App.get, this will be a simple get request / API, and let's give the endpoint name as all recipes. And here the callback function will go, and here we will get the request and response. Yeah, then we will take one try catch block, and let's handle the catch block first. So if something went wrong while fetching all the recipes, I will simply print console.log error while fetching favorite recipe, and the error. And we are also going to send the response as 500. It will be status, the status code will be 500, and in the body we will say error, something went wrong. Yeah, and sorry, here the favorite will not come, error while fetching recipes. Then in the try block I will say all recipes await db. So where this db will come from, so here we have exported this db, so this db let's import it here. Yeah, this is coming from this client.ts, and I will say dot select dot from, then here we need to pass the table, so the table will be recipes table. So check it out, here we have this recipes table. So what we are doing, we are writing one API endpoint which will communicate with this database, this recipes table, and it will fetch all the recipes. So that's why I have given this recipes table, and then simply return response dot status as 200, and in the JSON we will say all recipes to this all recipes. Yeah. Now let's test this. So if you go here, and here already we have this health endpoint. If you want to verify if your server is running, simply refresh and it returns success true. Now instead of health I will say all recipes. Yeah, and you can see it fetches all the recipes which we have in our database table. In the front end we will use all of this data to build our recipes screen. So I hope you have understood this simple all recipes endpoint. Awesome. Now the next endpoint we are going to write is all endpoint will be related to favorites. So before writing the favorites endpoint, what I'm going to do, I'm going to push this favorites table. So let's go to the backend and run. If you go in the package JSON, here we have this Drizzle git push. So I will say db push. So we are getting this info that this action will cause data loss and cannot be reverted. So what I am going to do, let's delete this table. So I will drop this recipes table. Yeah, and now I will kill this terminal, and let's open the again, and I will again go to the backend and let's run this script. Yeah, now let's check it out. Let's refresh, and here you can see we have these two tables. The first one is the favorites table and the recipes table, but recipes does not have any data. If you check it out here, if I refresh, the response will be empty, so the recipes is empty. So let's insert the data as well. So as you know, to insert the data, simply run this script npm run db seed. So we are getting some error because if you read the error, it say relations recipes already exist. So let's delete this recipes table and let's run this script again. And you can see we got this message seed complete inserted 10. And if I refresh here, we have this new table recipes with all of this data, and here we have this favorites table. So awesome. Now we have two tables for favorites and all the recipes. Now let's go back to the code, and I will close this file, this as well, and this one. Then the first endpoint I'm going to write is add to favorites. So this endpoint will be responsible for adding the recipes in the favorites table. This add to favorites will be a post endpoint, and it will add the recipes to the favorites table. So let's write this endpoint. So I will say app.post. So I hope you have understood this. Now I will remove this comment and I will only keep this post. And I'll say slash API slash add to favorites, and again we will have this arrow function here with the request, sorry my bad, and response. Then Again I will take one try catch block, and the catch block will be similar to this one. Just copy and paste it here, and I will say error while adding recipes to favorites. Yeah, and in the try block, to add the recipes in the favorites, we need the data from the front end. So I will destructure the request.body. To add to favorites, we need user ID, recipe ID, title, image, cook time, servings, and description. So if we check it out, the favorites table, this all the information we required to add the recipes in this table. So that's why I'm writing all of this here. Then we will check if user ID is not present, or the recipe ID is not present, or the title is not present. All of these three attributes, or you can call it property, it's mandatory. If it is not present, we will send the response as 400, and we will say error, and we will print missing required fields. Yeah, and if it exists, then we will create a new favorites equals to await db dot insert. We will insert in the favorites table, and the values will be user ID. So let's copy and paste it here. Yeah, like this. And then I will say dot returning, so that after inserted this all of these values, it will return the inserted value, so that we can return a new response dot status. Response dot status code will be 200, and dot json, and I will return this new favorite of 0. So this new favorites of 0 will have the added recipes. The next endpoint we are going to write is slash favorites. This will be a get request. So what this API will do, it will return all the favorites recipes added by the user. So I will write app.get slash API slash favorites slash user ID. So what is this user ID? So this user ID will be, we will receive this user ID in the URL params, or you can call it in the API endpoint params. Then again we will have this arrow function, async and request and response. Then we'll write try catch block. Let's copy this 2 line, paste here, and we will say error while fetching favorites. Yeah, and in the try we will destructure the user ID from the request dot params. Yeah, then I will say user favorites await db. We will go to db, select dot, then we need to pass which table. So it is a favorites table, and we will add one condition. So we will add this where clause, and we will use this equal operator which is coming from Drizzle ORM, and we will say favorites table dot user ID with this user ID. So what we are doing here, we are adding this where clause, and we are saying if any of the row user ID matches with this past user ID, then we want that data. So it will return all the rows matching with the same user ID, and we will simply return the response as 200 status code dot json user favorites. Yeah, so I hope you have understood this favorites endpoint. The next endpoint we are going to write is slash detail. Let's add the API as well, slash API slash detail slash and the recipe ID. So this will be a simple get request, and it will return the details of the recipes. Let's add app.get slash API slash detail the recipe ID. We will add the request response. This will be an arrow function. Again, let's quickly take the try catch block. Again, I will copy this two line, put it here. We will say error while fetching details. Let's add the recipes as well, recipe details. Then I will say const. Again, we will destructure the recipe ID from request dot params. We will handle the empty as well, and then I will say recipe await db dot select from recipes table, because details exist in the recipes table. And again we will add this where, and we'll use this equal operator, and we will say recipes table dot id matches with this recipe id. Yeah, so here we are getting this error because we need to convert this to a number type. And let's return the response as 200 status code and the recipe detail and the recipe. Yeah, so what we are doing here, we are going to the recipes table and we are matching with the recipes id with this recipe id which we are getting from the front end. It will simply return one single recipes and we can show that in our details screen. So I hope you have understood this detail API as well. And the last API we are going to write is the delete. So I will add the comment here /API/delete, and it will delete the favorites, and it will take the user ID in the params and the recipe ID, because we will delete the recipes matching with the user ID. So this will be a delete request, delete. Yeah, now I will copy this and I will say app.delete, and let's pass this endpoint. Then we will take the request response. Let's add the asynchronous here. This will be a asynchronous array function, and I will take the try catch block. Error, let's handle the error first. So again I will copy this. I will say error while deleting favorites recipes. Yeah, then in the try block, first let's destructure user ID and the recipe ID from the request.params. Then we will say await db dot delete, pass the favorites table, and we will add this where clause, and here we are going to add two condition. So to add two condition, we will use this AND operator from the Drizzle ORM. So we can give multiple condition here, and I will say equal favorites table dot user ID, and here we'll pass this user ID, and we will add one more condition. Again we'll use this equal favorites table dot recipe ID equals to this recipe ID. So again we are getting this error here, so let's convert this to number as well. Yeah, so what we are doing here, we are checking if this both condition is true, then only delete this particular recipe. First it should match with the user ID, means the authorized user is deleting his or her recipes, and then we are matching with the recipe ID. If both matches, then we delete that recipes, and we will return the response as status 200, and we will say success true, and we will pass one message saying favorite deleted successfully. So I hope you have understood this delete endpoint, this detail endpoint, favorites, then add to favorites, and fetching all the recipes. So now we have written our backend for our application. Now we will integrate all these APIs in our front end. So that's it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we will start building our screens and integrating all of these APIs. In this lesson, we are going to build home screen. So let's go back to the code. I will open this front-end folder, and already our application is running on the iPhone 17. So quickly open the terminal, go to the cd front-end directory and run npm run iOS so that your application will run on the simulator. Then go to the source, and here I will create one new folder, services. And in this folder I will create one service which is recipes.service.ts. And here I already have this types folder and this utils folder. You can find both this folder in the description below. Just click the resources link and you can freely download all of these resources. If you go to the app.types, here we have one generic string type which we are going to use. Then here we have this recipes types. So each recipe will have all of this data. So I have prepared this recipe type and this add to favorite type. Then in the utils, app.utils, I have this method converts keys to camel case because from the backend we will receive in snake case. So we will use this utility to convert it to camel case. And here in the constants, we have our base URL. On this URL, our server is running. So we have this base URL / API. And then I will close this constants file and I will close this explorer as well. Now let's write our first service, const fetch all recipes. So this method will be responsible for fetching all the recipes. I'll say try, I will take one try catch block, and if something went wrong then I will console log as error while fetching all recipes, and I will print the error here. Let's go to try block, and here first let's construct the URL. So I'll say recipe URL, base URL, which is coming from our constants file / all recipes. So if you remember, this is the endpoint where we will get all the recipes. Then I will say response equals to await. We'll use this fetch, pass the URL, and we will receive the data. So let's convert it to JSON format, and then I will parse this data. So parsed recipes equals to converts keys to camel case, and I will pass this data, and let's return this parsed recipes. Now let's export this function fetch all recipes. Yeah. So what does this method will do? It will fetch all the recipes from our database. Now before writing the UI part, let's write all our APIs. So after this fetch all service, let's add this one as well. Fetch add to favorites. Again, this will be a async method, but this one will have one request payload, and the type will be add to favorite. Then let's construct our URL, const URL equals to, again I will use the base URL / add to favorites. Let's check the endpoint name. So I will go to server.ts, and to add the recipes in favorite we have this endpoint. Let's copy it and paste it here. Yeah. So now I hope you have understood why I am using this base URL, because I have written this base URL in the constants file, and we will use this base URL so that every time we don't have to write all of this line. Then after the URL, let's restructure the request payload. So in the request payload, we will receive user ID, recipe ID, title, image, cook time, servings, and last is description. Yeah. Now let's construct the API payload. So simply copy this and paste it here. So this is our payload which will go in the API. Then I will say const response equals to await fetch URL, and the method will be post. The headers will be content, type will be application slash JSON, and in the body we will give this payload and wrap this payload in json.stringify. Then I will say const data equals to await response.json and return this data. But one thing is missing here, we have not added the try catch block. So let's use this try catch block, and if there is some error we will log that error, and the error message will be error while adding to favorites. Now let's put all of this code inside try block. Yeah, like this. Let's export this function here. Now let's write our next function, which is fetch user favorites recipes. So it will fetch all the users recipes. So this will be async and it will receive the user ID, because we need user ID to fetch the user's recipe. Let's first take the try catch block. If the catch block is executed, then we will print one console log. We will say error while fetching user saved recipes and the error. Let's handle the try block. Again we will first construct the URL using the base URL. Then here is the endpoint slash, and if you remember in the params we need to pass the user ID. If you check the favorites endpoint here, it says slash API slash favorites. This will be a slash favorites. Then we have the user ID which we are passing from here, and then it says recipe ID. So my bad, recipe ID will not be there. Only we will use the user ID which we are destructuring from the request.params. I have added previously just to explain you. We were not using that recipe ID, only we are using this user ID. Then let's go here in this file. After we have constructed the URL, I will say response equals to await fetch URL. So this is a GET request, and let's convert the response to JSON. Again we will parse the data using converts keys to camel case and pass the data, and then simply return the parsed data. Let's export this function as well. Yeah. Now after this user favorite recipes, we'll write another one which is fetch recipe details. So this will be a async function and it will take recipe ID, and then again we'll take the try catch block. So if there is some error we will log that error here, error while fetching recipe details, and log the error like this. Then in try block again we will construct the URL base URL slash detail slash recipe ID. Then I will say response equals to await fetch, pass the URL. Let's convert the response to JSON format, and again we will parse the data. Parsed data equals to converts keys to camel case, pass the data in the parameter and return the parsed data like this. Now let's export this function here. Yeah. Now we have written all our fetch functions. Now let's start building our home screen. So go to index.tsx, and here we have this text home screen. I will remove this text, and here in the safe area view I will add some class name. First I will give the height full, background to vista white, and the edges will be from top, so that the safe area view will ignore safe area from the top. Then inside this view, and also if you are wondering where this class is coming from, so simply go to global.css and here we have all of these colors are going to use in this app. You can access this global.css file from the resources below. Then above this view, I will wrap this view inside a scroll view, and I will say show vertical scroll indicator to false. Then I will add one single class to this view as relative. Then inside this view, I will take one image from React Native and the source and the class name. The class name will be widthful and height will be 75 and rounded to LG. Now to give the source, we need to create some states. So the first state I am going to create is the all recipes. All recipes. This will hold all the recipes which we will get from the backend. Let's use this use state from React. Initially the array will be empty, and let's define the type as well. So this type is coming from our types file. We are missing the bracket here. Yeah, let's fix this. And then inside this source we will say all recipes of 0 dot thumbnail. But initially this all recipes is empty. So what I'm going to do, I will create one function here, handle get all recipes. This will be a async function, and I will say response equals to await fetch all recipes. So we are calling our fetch all recipes service, and I will say set all recipes to recipes, the response dot all recipes or the empty array. And here we will add one condition: if all recipes dot length is 0, then return null. Now let's call this inside a use effect. Sorry, my bad. Handle get all recipes. Then here in this source we are missing one thing. We will wrap this inside a object and we'll add this URI like this. Now you can see here we will have our image. Let's refresh the app. The image is not visible. Let's see the console. Yeah, we are getting the error here. Error while fetching recipes. Fetch failed, could not connect to the server. So my bad, I have not run the server. So let's go to the backend and do npm run server. Let's run our server. And now, yeah, server is running now. Let's refresh the page again. Sorry, not the page, the app. Now let's check if we are getting some more error. Yeah, now it is running, and you can see here we have this image. Also here I'm going to add some padding. Yeah, like this. Our hero image is looking good. Now after this image, I will take one view and I will say height full, opacity 20, rounded LG, and width full. Background will be black, and I will give absolute. So what is this view? If you notice, just notice here in the image, look at this image. If I comment this and if I save this file, the image got lighter. But if I take this view, then the image have some shadow effect. That's why I'm taking this view, so that we will have our buttons above this image, and if the image is lighter, then the button content will not be visible. That's why I'm taking this view. And also I'm going to use the linear gradient. After this view, I have this linear gradient. So now we have more darker shadow bottom of this image. Just use this linear gradient, and if you are encountering some error, make sure this Expo linear gradient is installed. Then after this linear gradient, I will take one view. Let's add some class. First I will make this view as absolute. From top I will give 3.8 rem. From left 4, flex and items to start. Then inside this view I will take one more view and I will give some class here as well. Just flex row and some gap. And And then inside this view, we want to render this 20-minute card and this rating card. In this view, I have these two views. First one is for the time and second one is for the rating. I've given some utility classes, and then we have this icon which is coming from this Expo vector icons. You can access all the icons from here. Just go to this icons.expo.fye and you can search and access all of these icons. So I'm using this and design icons. Then we have this text, and what we are doing here, we are saying all recipes which we are getting from our database of 0 means the first recipe dot preparation time minutes. Then we have the second view, the similar classes, and let me fix this like this. Yeah, then I have this text and I have this star icon and this text burning orange class. And then I have given some classes to this rating text like color, text size and the font weight. After this view, I will take one text and I will say all recipes of 0 dot name. Let's display the recipes name and let's give some classes. Text will be white, text color will be white, text size will be 1.75 rem, font weight bold and some margin top. Bold and margin top will be 3, and close this bracket here. Yeah, so here we have this recipe name, and then let's show the recipe description. So again I will say recipes of 0 dot short description. Let's give some class to this recipes description as well. Again text color will be white, text size base and some margin top. Yeah, so here we have this recipe description. After this text, I will take one pressable from React Native. Inside this pressable, I will take one text and I will say view recipe. Now let's style this button a little bit. I have given some class name to this pressable. I have changed the background color, given some border radius and the margin and padding. And similarly, I have changed the text color to white, text size and font weight to semi-bold. After this, here on the pressable, I will add this on press and let's write this handle navigation method. Here I will say handle navigation. This will be a arrow function. Let's use the router from Expo router, use router, and here we will receive the ID and we will route the user router dot push slash detail slash ID. So currently this detail screen does not exist, but we will create this detail screen soon. So I've created this method to avoid the error. So in the ID we are passing this all recipes of 0 dot ID. So I think our hero image is looking good with the time, rating, name, description and this beautiful looking button. Now if we check the design, we want to create this trending now text and this card. This card have this rating, image, title, time and the calories. So let's go here, and after this view I will take one more view. First let's give some margin top as 8. Again I will take one text and it will say trending now. Let's give some class. I will say text color to code gray, font semi bold, text size will be 1.25 rem. So here we have this trending now text. After this text I will take one scroll view because we want vertical scroll. Inside this scroll view, first I will say it will be horizontal, sorry not vertical, and shows horizontal indicator to false. And I can also give some styling to this scroll view using content container style, sorry not the class name, content container style, and I will just give some gap. I will say gap of 16 pixel. So each card will have some gap, or let's make it to 18 pixel. Yeah, then I will say all recipes dot map. We will receive each recipe here and I will return one text and let's display the recipe name, and remember to add the key. So I will say recipe.id. So you can see here we have these recipes and we can scroll like this. But instead of this text, we are going to create one component which will show the image as well. So what I will do, in the components, I will create one new component which is recipe card.tsx. Let's quickly create this component recipe card. Let's export this component recipe card. This recipe card will receive some props. The only prop it will receive the recipe. Let's define the type I recipe. Then here first I will create the router, because on each recipe click use router we will redirect to the detail page. And then sorry, my bad, then let's write the handle navigation as well. Let's copy the handle navigation from here. Don't worry about the error, we will create the detail screen as well. Yeah, then I will return one pressable from React Native, and on press we will call handle navigation, and similarly we will convert the recipe ID to string. Now let's call this recipe card here. So instead of this rendering this text, I will say recipe card, and let's pass the recipe, and remember to add the key. So I will use this ID as the key. Now let's go to this recipe card. First let's give some class name to this recipe card. I will add relative, margin top, rounded excel, overflow will be hidden, background color will be white, some border, I will use this color for the border. Then inside this pressable I will take one image from React Native. Let's give the source, so we'll use this URI recipe dot thumbnail, and for height and width I will give this much this much width, and similarly this much height. You can see our image is rendering, one image is rendered. Yeah, all the image is rendered. I think it is looking good. Yeah, so let's continue. So after this image I have taken this view. I have given some class names. First class is flex. Flex direction will be row, some gap, item center, background color, padding, border radius, absolute, and some opacity. And then given this text, you remember this is the similar text we have used here, and similarly we have this rating text, and similarly we are using this recipe.name, and just like for the hero image we have this minutes, and I'm using the same text for showing the minutes, and similarly the text for calorie. Now the only thing is missing the icons. So for the recipe preparation time minutes, let's use the same icon which we have used here. So I will copy this icon, paste it here. Let's copy the uses as well. Yeah, and let's paste it after this view above minutes. And for calorie, let's go to Expo vector icons. For calories, for now let's use this icon. If you want you can use any icon. So for now, for simplicity, I'm going to use this icon. So after the calorie, let's paste this icon here, and the size will be 16. Yeah, like this. So I think our trending now content is looking good. You can horizontally scroll all of these recipes, and for each recipes we have nice looking image with rating, name, and some more information. Now let's close this recipe card, and after this recipe card we want to render this list. If you remember, after this recipe card, we will render all of these recipes. If you want, you can have different APIs for trending now content and different APIs for all recipes. If you go to Neon database, as you can see, we have two tables here, favorites and recipes. So these all are the recipes. What you can do, you can create one more trending now tables and you can have your trending now recipes, or you can use external API as well. So I hope you have understood this, but for now I'm going to use the same content. Now let's render all of the recipes. After this view, I will take one more view, and first I will give margin top as 8 and padding bottom as 24 to avoid overlapping the content with this tab. So that's why I'm giving the padding bottom. And let's first take one text which will say all recipes, and let's give some class name. So here we have this all recipes text. I will give text color as code gray, font semi bold, and text size again will be 1.25 rem. After this text, again we will loop through the all recipes. I will say all recipes dot map. We will receive each recipe here, and again we will return one pressable. First let's give the key. Always remember to add the key first, else you will forget later. Let's add the on press as well. So on press, again we will call the handle navigation and we will pass recipe.id, and let's give some class name as well. I will give flex row, item center, gap will be 4, margin top will be 4, border color will be cabrin pink, background will be white, and rounded will be 2xl. First let's render the image. So again, for image we need to define the source and use the URI. So recipe.thumbnail, and class name I will say height 24 and width 24 and some border radius. Yeah, so let's see. We have all of this list here, and you can see we have rendered the image. Now let's render the recipes content. After this image, I will take one view and just I will make this view as flex. And first let's display the recipe name. So we will use this text and we will say, sorry my bad, recipe.name, and let's give some class. Again the text color will be code gray, text size will be LG, and font to medium. Yeah, like this. So you can see we have this recipe name. Now let's show the recipe description. So again we will use this text color will be this one, and in this text I will say recipe. For description I'm going to add this condition. I will check if the recipe description length is greater than 30, then we will say recipe dot short description dot slice. We will only render 0 to 30 characters, which is 29, plus this 3 dots, else we will render the whole description. So you can check here, if the description is not shorter, we will render like this, else we will render all the description, so that our UI will not overflow and will not break. Now after this text, similarly we need to render this minutes and servings and rating. So I'm going to copy paste the code for this 3 content. So you can see here I have taken one view. Inside this view, similarly we have this view which we have given some class flex and item center, and we have this text for preparation minutes, and then we have this view and we are rendering this text with the servings, and similarly for rating. Now let's place the icon. So for minutes, again I am going to use the above icon. So let's go here. Let's use this for the time icon. So after this, below this text I will use this icon, and for servings let's search if we can have some icons. I will say servings. No, let's search cook. Yeah. So for now, let's use this icon. Let's copy the usage as well. So after this preparation minutes, then yeah, below this, sorry, above the servings, let's use this and I will say 16. Now we have the rating icon as well. So you can see our all recipes list is ready. Each recipe have this image, title, description, minutes, servings and this rating. So I think this all recipe list is looking good, and if you click on it we will get this error because the detail page is not exist. That's why we are getting this error. We will create the detail page in the next lesson. For now, the only purpose of this lesson is to build this home screen. Now let's refresh it and let's see if everything working good. The app is taking some time to load the image. Yeah, all the images loaded, and if you check it out, we have this nice looking hero image, trending now section, and we can browse all the recipes here in the home screen. So I think it is looking good, great. And in the next lecture we are going to build the detail screen. So I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lesson we are going to build the detail screen. If you check it out the design, this is how our detail screen is going to look like. First we have this nice looking hero image, then we have the recipe title, description, we show the rating, minutes and the calories, and after that we show the ingredients. Here you can see we show the ingredients, and then we have nutrition per serving like protein, carbs, fats and the instructions to build this recipe. So let's start building our detail screen. So let's go back to VS Code, and if you check it out, every recipe will have a detail screen. So I will open the front end. Inside app I will create one new folder and I will call it detail, and here I will create one dynamic screen path and it will look something like this, id.tsx. So what is this? So for every recipe we have the id. So the id will receive from the params and we will use this id to fetch the recipe details. So let's create the detail component. So I will say detail screen, which will be a arrow function, and let's export this component like this. Yeah. Now first I will take the router from use router, and then I will access the id. So how to access the id? So I will restructure the id using this use local search params, and here let's call this and it will provide us the id. Also let's define the type, so it only will have this id. So we will receive the id using this use local search params hook. Then let's create one state for recipe details, set recipe details. This will be a use state. Let's define the type as iRecipe, which is coming from our types file, and then let's fetch the recipe details. So I will say handle fetch recipe details. This will be a async function, async, my bad. Yeah, then I will say const response, and already we have written all our services, so I will call fetch recipe details and I will pass the id. If you check it out, this function is receive the recipe id and it calls the fetch to get the recipe detail. So I'm using this function. Then after we got the response, I will say set recipe details to response dot recipe detail, because from the backend we are sending in the recipe detail of 0. Then let's call this inside a use effect hook. We'll call this function here, and I will say if recipe detail does not exist, then return null. We will not render our screen. Now let's write the UI for this recipe detail. So as usual, first we will take the safe area view from our components, and we will give height full, background color to Vista white, and if you remember we can also give edges. So I will say edges and I will give the bottom. Then inside the safe area view, I will take one scroll view because entire detail screen will be scrollable, and I will say show vertical scroll indicator to false. Then inside the scroll view, I will take one view and I will add some classes. So the only class I am going to add is the relative. Then inside this view, let's import this view from React Native. Yeah. Then inside this view, I will take one image, and as usual we need to define the source. So this will be a recipe details dot thumbnail. Class name, I will give the image height as 132, width full, and let's give the alt as well. So I will say detail image, and I think we are getting this error because we have not imported it. So let's import it from React Native. Yeah, here we are getting this error. So I think, yeah, it is because of this alt closing. Yeah, so remember to close this alt string. And then I think on the view recipe we have added the on click. Yeah, you can see on the view recipe we redirect to the detail screen, and here you can see this image is got rendered, and I think it is looking good. Let's continue for the remaining ones. Here I will take one pressable from React Native. First let's define some class name. I will make this pressable as absolute. From top I will give 20 and from left I will give 6. And on press I will say router.back. I'm creating the back button here. If user clicks on this, we will redirect the user to the back screen. Then let's use icons here. So let's import the icon. Here I will say import icons, Expo vector icons. Let's use this here. I will give the name chevron back. Size will be 24 and the color will be white. So here you can see this backs button. If I click here, we redirect the user to the back page or the back screen. And you can see now our detail screen is working for every recipe. Yeah, it's looking good. Let's go back. Let's go to this recipe. Let's check the design. So if you check the design, now we have to render this title and description. So I'm going to copy and paste the code, which is going to be a simpler code. We will save our time here little bit. So here I have created this one view. I have given some padding. Then here we have this text which show the recipe details dot name. Font will be bold. Text size will be 1.75 rem. And similarly we are showing the description with some colors and margin top. Now if we check the design, the next we have to show these ratings, this minutes and the calorie. So again I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah, here we have the rating, minutes and calorie. So after this text I've created this view, given some CSS, and then I've created this one more view and I've added some tailwind CSS, and just we are showing this text and this rating with some CSS like font, weight, bold and text color. Then I've created one more view. I've given padding in X and Y axis, justify center, item center, flex row, some gap, background color, border radius and border. I am using this and design icon, like in the home screen as well we are using this and design icon, so make sure to import this icon. Then I have this text which displays the preparation minutes, and similarly the same view which we have created here with the different icon and the different content. Now if you check out the design, this is looking very much similar. I will say almost similar. Now let's create ingredients section. I will go back to the code, and here after this view I will take one more view and just I will give margin top as 8, not padding top, margin top. And in this view I will take one text and let's add the text as ingredients, yeah, like this. And I will add some CSS. Text size will be XL, font semi bold, and text color to code gray, like this. You can see we have this ingredients text here, and then we will render one divider. So to create the divider, I will use the view, and I will just give border bottom color as this one and margin top to 4. So here we have this nice looking divider look. Then after this view, I will take one more view and I will give gap 4 and margin top to 8. And in this view, I will iterate through the recipe details dot ingredients dot map. We will receive each item here, and I will return one view. Always remember to add the key first, else you will forget later. So I will give the item as the key, and in this view I will render one text, and let's render the item. Yeah, here you can see we have all the ingredients. Now let's do the styling. First I will add some CSS. I'll say flex row gap 4 item center, and here I will take one more view, and here I will create a checkbox UI. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so I will say height and width will be equal some border radius to LG. Border will be 1.5 pixel, and I will give the border color as Kabul. Yeah, like this. And for the gap we have the typo, so let's make it as 4. Yeah, our ingredients section is looking good. We have all the ingredients which is required to create this recipe. So our UI for the ingredients is looking good, just like real apps. Now after these ingredients we need to create this nutrition per saving card. I will copy the code for this nutrition per saving card. After this view I have created one more view here, and if you check the result, now we have this nutrition card. Here in this view I have given padding, background color, border, border radius and margin top to 8. Then I have created this simple text nutrition per saving. Then again I have created this view. Inside this view I have created one more view, given some Nativewind like flex margin X 1 item center, justify center rounded to 2XL, background color, padding and shadow. Then I have this text for showing the protein text, given text color, text size and font weight. Then I have this text for the protein data like 8 gram. And after this I have created this similar view 2 more times. Only the content differs, like here we show the carbs and here we show the fats. Now let's check the next thing. Yeah, so next we need to render these instructions. After this view I will create one more view. First again I will give margin top as 8, so that for each section there will be some gap between this. I will take one text and I will say instructions. Let's give some CSS. Text size XL, font to semi bold and text color to code gray, like this. So if you scroll, here we have this instruction text. Now let's render all the instruction. To render this I will create one more view, and I will just give gap and margin top. I will give gap as 4 and margin top as 4. Inside this view I will say recipe details dot map, recipe details dot instruction dot map. Here you will receive the item, and I will say return one view. First I will give the key as item. Then let's close this view here, and inside this view I will take one text and let's show the instructions. So if you check it out, here we have this instructions. Let's give some CSS. I will add some tailwind here for this view. First I will give border, flex 1, some margin, items start, justify center, border radius to 2XL, background color will be white, padding 4 and some shadow. Then let's give some CSS to this text as well. I will make this font medium, text LG, and text color to Kabul. Now here you can see we are showing these instructions beautifully. Any user can use this app to create these recipes. I think our detail screen is looking good, just like real apps. Awesome. In this lesson, we have successfully created our detail screen, and if you check it out, you can see any detail for the recipe. Let's say you want to create this recipe, just click on it. We will have this recipe image, title, description, some details, ingredients, nutrition, and the instructions to make this recipe. So I think our detail screen is looking good. Now in the next lecture, we will create our search screen. So I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lesson, we are going to create our search screen. So let's go to search page or the search screen. I will close this Explorer, and here first we will write the logic, then we will create the UI. So if you check it out, the design for this screen, here we have the search screen. First we will have the search bar, and then we have the search card. Search card contains the image, duration, rating, and it also have this favorite button where user can click to add this recipe into favorites, and then each recipe have the title and description. So first I will create the logic for the search, and then we will create the UI. First I will destructure the user from use user, and then I will create one state which is search value, set search value. This will be a use state, and initially it will be an empty string. I'm creating this state to store the user search value, and then to display all the recipes I will create one state for that as well, all recipes. Again this will be a use state, and initially it will be empty array, and let's add the type as well. Yeah. And the last state we need to create is the filtered recipes. So why I am creating this state? Because if user searches, then we will store all the filtered recipes in this state. So that's why I'm creating this, and again it will have the similar type. Yeah, like this. So let's create first handle fetch to fetch all the recipes. So I will say handle fetch all recipes equals to, this will be a async function. In this function I will say const response equals to await fetch all recipes. So in the recipe service already we have this method, say fetch all recipes. Then I will say recipes equals to await, sorry, not await, response dot all recipes. So in the all recipes we will have the all recipes or the empty array. Then I will say set all recipes to recipes, and similarly I will say set filtered recipe to this recipes. So we have created this handle fetch all recipes. If we call this method, we will have all the recipes stored in this two variable. Now let's handle add to favorites feature. So I will create one method for that as well. I will say handle add to favorites. This will be a async, and here we will receive the recipe which needs to be add in favorite, and the type will be I add to favorite. And if you check the type, the recipes types, I have created this type. You can access this file from the description below. So make sure to click the resources link, and freely you can download all of these resources which will be required to build this app, and it is for absolutely free. So make sure to grab those. Also, if you're liking this video, then please like and subscribe to the video. It motivates me to keep creating quality content. So make sure to like and leave a comment below. Also, if you have any feedback about the teaching style, or if you have any feedback like I should go more depth or I should skip the easy part, or if you have any feedback in your mind, then make sure to drop that in the comments below, that it actually helps a lot. Now let's continue. Here first I will say if user is not there, then return. So why I am doing this, you will get to know now. I will say await fetch add to favorites. Already we have created this fetch add to favorites in our service. Here we need to pass some data. First we need to pass the user ID. So the user ID will come from the user.id and the recipe. So I will spread the recipe like this. So that's why I am added this condition here. If user does not exist, then the ID will be undefined. It prevents from crashing. So that's why I've added this base condition here, and I'm spreading all the recipe data. Yeah, that's it. Also, if you want, you can put this inside a try catch block as well. So I will put this inside a try catch block, and here I will print the error. I will say failed to add favorites and print the error. Yeah, after this I will call one use effect, and here inside this use effect let's call this method like this. And again I will take one more use effect here, and inside this use effect I'm going to handle the search value. So I will say search equals to search value dot trim, will remove the empty spaces from prefix and suffix, and I will make it to lowercase. Yeah, so we will have the search here, and I will say if search is not there, if the search is undefined or empty, I will say set filtered recipes to all recipes and return. Don't move forward. If user have not searched anything, then all the recipes will be visible to the user. Then I will say const filtered equals to all recipes dot filter. We will filter it. We will receive each recipe here, and I will say recipe dot name dot to lowercase dot includes. We will use this includes and pass the search. So what we are doing here, we are filtering all the recipes and we are checking if any recipe includes our search value, then return that recipes. Like this we will have all the filtered recipes, and we will just set the filtered like this. And remember to add the dependency as search value, else it will not called, and the all recipes. Yeah, that's it for the search functionality. I hope you have understood this logic. Now let's create our UI, and don't worry, we will call this handle add to favorites for each recipe card. In this safe area view, again I will do flex 1, background color to vista white, padding, and here I will give the edges as top. Then I will remove this view and text, and let's take scroll view from React Native, and again we will say show vertical scroll indicator to false, and I'm going to add one more property, which is keyboard dismiss persist tabs to handled. So what is this property? If you hover on it, it says determines when the keyboard should stay visible after a tap. I have said handled, it means if you read the handled, the keyboard will not dismiss automatically when the tap was handled by a children or captured by an ancestor. The keyboard will not dismiss automatically when it is tabbed outside of the screen. Then inside this scroll view, I will take one view and I will say class as relative. Then inside this view, first let's create the text input, which is our search bar. I will give some class. First I will define the height, border radius to LG, background color to global sand, and I will give padding left as 12. Now let's give the placeholder. So I will say search recipes. Let's give the placeholder text color. So I will give the text color as 594139, and I will give the value as search value, and on change text, not on change, it is on change text, just pass this setter. Yeah, so you can see here the search is looking good. Now let's add the icon as well. Here we have this icon, feather icon, and this is coming from our Expo vector icons, and I've defined some styles. The icon name is search, size 22 pixel. I've defined this color and some positions. The position is absolute. From left I have given 12 pixel, and from top I have given 8 pixel. Now let's render all the filtered recipes. So after this view, I will create one more view, and I will first add some class margin top 4, padding bottom to 4, and I will say filtered recipes dot length greater than 0. Then we will render the recipe, else we will say text, and I will say no recipes found. Let's add some CSS. I will give margin top, text center, text size to 16 pixel, and text color to Kabul, like this. Let's give null here for now. So here what I am doing, let's say if user searched something which does not exist in our recipe list, so we will show this text as no recipe found. Now let's handle this part. So for this one, I'm going to create one search card recipe. Here in the components folder, I will create one component, search card recipe.tsx. Yeah, now let's create this component. So here I have this search card recipe created. So this is a simple component. First I have this router from the Expo router, and then this is a simple handle navigation which redirects the user to the detail page. And then I have taken this pressable from React Native, and on press I am calling this handle navigation which we have done previously. Then I have given this pressable some CSS, relative, position as relative, border radius to 3xl, box shadow to LG, margin top, and overflow to hidden. Then I am rendering this recipe thumbnail, and similarly I have created this view with some styles. I have given some simple styling, the positions and flex stylings, and then we are using this similar and design icon to show our preparation time minutes. And finally we are showing this rating which we have shown in other cards as well. And then I have this button pressable, sorry, not button, it is a pressable, and it shows this icon which looks like a heart icon. And on this handle press I am calling this on handle add to favorites. So this is the thing. So I will come back to this later. First here again I have created this view to show the recipe name and recipe description. On this handle add to favorites, what I am doing, the recipe data which we are receiving from the props, I am passing all the data back to the parent component, the ID, name, thumbnail, cook time, servings, and the description, so that when we will use here, so instead of null I will say filtered recipes dot map, we will receive each recipe here, and I will return search card recipe like this. Then inside the search card recipe, first we need to define the ID, then pass the recipe, and we need to pass this on handle add to favorites, and just pass handle add to favorites like this. And check it out, if I go to search screen, here we have this recipe card, and you can scroll to check all the recipes. The image is loading. Yeah, so for each recipe we have this minutes, rating, and here we have this add to favorites card. If I click on this button, what happens, this method gets called, and from recipe card, sorry, not the recipe card, the search card recipe, we are passing all the data, and here I am passing all the data to this add to favorites, so that all this data will be put in our favorites table. I will give you the demo. So let's go to our favorites table, and if you check it out, I will first refresh the table. The favorites table is empty. Now let's say I will add this recipe to favorites. I've clicked the button. Now let's check the result. I will refresh, and you can see I pressed 2 times. That's why the recipe added 2 times here. And you can see here we have successfully added these recipes to our favorites table. So our API, backend connection, all of this working seamlessly. Now only the thing we need to do is just fetch all the recipes and show in the favorite screen. If you want, you can also show the alert after you have added the recipes in the favorites list. What you can do after you have called the API, you can say alert dot alert, and you can say added to favorites successfully. Yeah, now check it out. If I add this recipe to favorite, I got this alert added to favorite successfully. Yeah, and on OK, the alert will be dismissed. So we have successfully created our search screen. Now let's test it. So we have tested the favorites. Now let's test the recipe. So I will say pancakes. Yeah, the pancakes got filtered, and let's see if I type anything. We got this no recipes found. And if I search salad, yeah, so the salad recipe comes. Yeah, so the search is also working fine. Awesome. Also, if you click any of the recipe, we redirect the user to our detail page to see all the details about the recipe. So we have created the search screen successfully. In the next lecture, we will build our favorite screen. So I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lesson, we are going to create favorite screen. So let's go to favorites.tsx. So here we have written our favorite screen component. Let's check the design for our favorite screen. Here I will go to the whiteboard, and here we have this favorite screen. Favorite screen contains the favorites title and the description, and also we display the count of the favorites. Let's build this. Again, I will take router. Use router from Expo router, because on clicking on the favorites card we will redirect the user to the detail screen. Then we will need the favorites list. So I will say favorites list set favorites list, and it will be a use state. Initially it will be empty, and the type will be add to favorite array. And also we will require the user. So I will say use user from Clerk Expo. Here we will get the sign in user. Now let's write our handle fetch. So I will say handle fetch favorites recipes. This will be a async function. And again I will check if user is not there, then return null. Else I will say const data equals to await fetch user favorites recipes, and we need to pass the ID, and set favorites list to data or empty array. If you check this fetch user favorites recipes, it takes the user ID and it fetches the user marked favorites list. Let's close this file, and then I'm going to write one more handler so that user can delete the favorites recipe. So I will say handle delete favorites. Again this will be a async function, and it will take the ID of type number. And I will check if user is not present, then return null. Then I will take one try catch block. If there is some error while deleting, we will prompt the user with the alert saying error while deleting. And in the try I will say await fetch delete favorites, and just pass user.id and the parameter id. So here we are calling this fetch delete recipes. It takes the user id and the recipe id. So we are passing the user id and the recipe id. We are getting this recipe id from these params. Then after this, let's write the handle navigation as well. This will also take the id. I will say router.push. We will push to the detail page with the id. And then after this handle navigation, we are going to use one special look, which is use focus effect. We are not using use effect here, we are using the use focus effect. And inside this, sorry, it does not takes the dependency array. And here I will say use callback, and I will call handle fetch favorites recipes. So why I am not using use effect? Because If you hover on it, you can read hook to run an effect whenever a route is focused. It means whenever user goes to this favorite screen, it will be called, and here we will fetch all the favorites recipes. This use focus effect is similar to use effect, but you can read here, but the effect reruns each time the screen comes into focus, and the optional cleanup function runs when the screen loses focus. So that's why we are using the use focus effect instead of use effect. And then here I will say if favorites recipes means favorite list length is 0 means it is empty, then I will return one activity indicator from React Native. So we will show the loading to the user. If you want, you can also add this on every screen because we are doing some API calls on every screen. For now, I will keep it like this. And then as usual, we will give some class. The first class is height full, padding 4, background to vista white, and we will give the edges as top. Then I will remove this view. I will take one scroll view from React Native, and I will say shows vertical scroll indicator to false. And inside this scroll view, first we need to display the two text, which is favorites, and the second text will display the count. So we will get the count from favorites list dot length. Then we will show this text. Here now you can see we have this favorites text and this favorite description. And remember here I have the typo. I have given the callback function here, but it does not take callback function. It usually takes this as a parameter. So make sure to remove the callback function and directly use callback inside use focus effect. And now if you refresh the app and if you go to favorites, you can see we have this title and description. Now let's give some styling to this text. I will give the text size as 2 rem and font to bold. And for this description, I will say margin top 2 and text color to this one. Yeah, so you can see it is looking good. Now we need to render all the list. So after this text, I will take one view, and first I will give some margin top, flex gap 8 and padding bottom to 24. And I will say favorites recipes, favorite list dot map will receive each recipe here. Will use the index, and I will return one pressable. First let's add the key as the index, and on press, on the on press we will call handle navigation and just pass the recipe ID. Then let's give some CSS. First I will make this as relative, border radius to Excel, background color white, some shadow, and I will make this as overflow hidden. Then inside this pressable I will take the one image from React Native. First we will show the image, so again we'll use the URI, and I will say recipe.image, and let's give height and width as well. I will give width as full and height as 100, or let's make it 108. Yeah, and then again we need to show the title description, so I'm going to copy paste the code for title and description. Yeah, so after this image I have created this view, and you can see this view have the position as absolute. From top it is 4, right 4, background color white, opacity, border radius and some padding. And then here we need to show the icon. If you check it out, here we have this heart icon, so I'm going to use the Expo icons, and let's search heart. Yeah, so I will use this icon. Let's copy this, paste it here. Let's copy the uses. Yeah, then I will replace this with this icon, and let's give the size as 16 pixel. Let's make it 24. I think 24 is looking good. And for the color I'm going to give this opacity color, so it is looking good. And after this icon I have taken this pressable. So this is the delete button. Inside this pressable I am calling this handle delete favorites, which we have created earlier, and just I am passing the recipe ID. Then I have given some styling here. First I have given the position as absolute. From top I am giving 20 pixel, from right it is 4 pixel, background color white, and opacity. Then again we are using the material icons here, and after this we have this view which shows the title and description. Now let's test this. If I try to delete, we are getting this error while fetching deleting recipes. So let's check it out. So here we are passing the user ID, recipe ID, and then we have this URL response. Yeah, I think here it is looking good. Let's go to the API endpoint. So I will go to server. Let's find, yeah, it is here. Yeah, and you can see we are missing something here. We are missing this slash. It should slash API slash delete favorites user ID. And instead of number, let's use parse int. Yeah, the error is gone. Now let's try to delete it again. So I will say delete. And let's check if we are getting the same error. Let's try to delete. Yeah, the error is not the same, but we are not seeing anything here. Is it deleted or not deleted? So let's check the database. So here you can see we have these two recipes. So let's refresh it. Yeah, the recipes is still 2, so it is not deleting. Now I refresh the app and the previous recipes is deleted. It means previously we have 4 recipes. Now let's try to delete this one. And now let's refresh. Yeah, the recipes is deleting, but it is not reflecting here. Let's try to go here and then here. Yeah, all gone. Also we need to handle this case as well. So what I will do here, I will say if the favorites list dot length is 0, then we will show this text. We will say favorites list is empty. So if the favorite list is empty, we will show this text. But here is the issue. If the favorite list is empty, you can see here we have this activity indicator which is constantly loading. Because the favorite list is empty, so we return the activity indicator. So what we can do, we can create one loading state. So I will say loading, set loading, and initially it will be false. Here I will say set loading to true, and after this I will say set loading to false. Set loading to false. And instead of adding this condition, I will say if it is loading, then only show the activity indicator. Now you can see we are seeing this title and description. So I think we don't need this one because already we are showing 0 recipes saved. So I hope you have understood this. So now we will handle this by loading state. And the thing is, if I add this to favorites, so here you can see we got this alert and we got the recipes. But if I delete, then nothing happens. So the thing is missing here is after we deleted the recipe, we are not refetching the recipes again. So just we need to call this method handle fetch favorite recipes. And now check it out. If I let's say add this one, then this one. Now let's go to favorites. We have these two recipes, and now I will delete this recipe. I will delete this, and you can see the app got refreshed and we got single recipes, and this is also got updated. So make sure to refetch the recipes after we deleted the recipes. And if you check the database, in the database it should only have one recipe. So let's refresh the table. Yeah, here we have the one recipes. So our favorites feature is working as expected. We have created the tables for favorites, APIs, and finally we have created our favorite screen. So I hope you have understood this favorite screen, and in the next lesson we are going to build our profile screen. So I will meet you in the next lesson. In this lecture we are going to create our profile screen. The profile screen is going to be the simplest screen among the others. So I will go to profile screen, and here what we need to do, I will remove the safe area view and simply I will call user profile view, and I will import this from, let's import from Clerk Expo native, and I will destructure this. Yeah, that's it. Our profile screen is created. So this is powered by Clerk. Here we can give the user options to edit the profile, like you can update the image, first name, last name. Then you can manage the account as well. You can connect different account, you can remove this connection, we can sign out from here. So if I sign out, it should redirect us to the sign in screen. So as soon as I sign out, you can see it redirects us to our sign in screen. So our profile view is working as expected. So I hope you have understood this user profile view, which is powered by Clerk Expo. So that's it for this lesson. We have created all our screens, from home to details screen to search screen and favorites, and finally we have created our profile screen. So I hope you have understood everything from the start to the end. If you have any doubts or if you have stuck anywhere, then simply comment below and I am happy to help you. I hope you enjoyed this course and had fun building this project. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe to the channel. This really motivates me to keep creating high quality content and projects. And don't forget to check out the source code on Buy Me a Coffee or TopMate. I'll meet you in the next video.